Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is now just days away from its official release by Disney, Lucasfilm, J.J. Abrams, and even creator George Lucas. That is all set and ready to end the Skywalker saga and the sequel trilogy itself. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, before we go into The Rise of Skywalker, a lot of fans have mixed feelings and emotions and thoughts going into this movie based on what they have seen and heard through all the various leaks and the spoilers, etc., etc. Now, what's really intriguing about Episode 9 is that this movie really is going to be very important for Disney and Lucasfilm. But on top of all of this, we do know that The Rise of Skywalker is going to be a very big risk by Disney based on what they are actually doing for the actual series related to all the core characters like Rey, Kylo Ren, Luke, and more. Now, I want to go over what J.J. Abrams had to say in an interview talking about Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, where J.J. Abrams talks about that The Rise of Skywalker wouldn't even be nearly as good of a movie as it is now if it weren't for Rian Johnson. So, this is what J.J. Abrams had to say in a recent interview for, of course, everything related to Rian and his attempt at The Last Jedi and how it transfers over to The Rise of Skywalker. Now, JJ states, Rian is an incredibly talented director. I don't know if you've seen Knives Out, but I loved it. Just an incredibly talented guy and a great storyteller. So when he came on to work on the next film, and we were just starting to shoot The Force Awakens, I was really excited to see where he would go and what he would do. And it's funny because one of the things that I was thinking at first was, oh, I really want to see all the friends together. And in his story, they really weren't. Rey doesn't really meet Poe until the end. Rey and Finn are not really together in the movie. So in a way, the story that he told in a lot of ways helped set up what we're doing in 9, but it also allowed Episode 9 to have the group together and out on an adventure in a way that weirdly, even though it's the third film, it's the first time they all get together. Disney, I think it was just way too late to get these characters together just to add that in there. He goes on to say, but there were a lot of details and story points that Rian set up in The Last Jedi that we run with in this movie. I don't think this movie would have been nearly what it is without the choices that Rian made, so I'm nothing but grateful. So let's go over a couple of parts about this of what J.J. Abrams had to say about Rian Johnson and how everything, basically what Rian Johnson did, allowed things to happen in The Rise of Skywalker. So let's go over a couple of parts about this. Now, the thing about Episode 9 is that this is the first film of the trilogy that all three characters are going to get together. Honestly, it is a couple of movies too late to do that. I know it's the very end of the Skywalker saga and JJ feels that it's special for the last movie to have these characters together, but at the same exact time, look at the structure of the original trilogy. The characters, the trio, Luke, Han, and Leia were together from the very beginning. I think that's one of the other main reasons as to why the Disney Star Wars films feel out of place. I also don't agree with what J.J. Abrams says here of how a lot of the decisions that Rian Johnson made are actually what made The Rise of Skywalker a better Star Wars movie than what it would have ever been if it weren't for Rian Johnson, essentially. And in that interview, basically what J.J. Abrams is saying is that if it weren't for Rian Johnson, they wouldn't have been able to do certain aspects of the movie in The Rise of Skywalker. That I also disagree with here. So let's go over this. So in The Last Jedi, J.J. Abrams actually pretty much thought that Rian Johnson was going to bring the characters together and was surprised that Rian Johnson didn't do that exact thing and decided to split them apart for the whole entire movie, except for the very end, right, where they're on the Falcon and regrouping and stuff like that. So Rian Johnson failed to actually bring the characters together again. That was my big problem with The Last Jedi again, because we had the characters separated basically in The Force Awakens. Sure, you had Rey and Finn, but it still didn't have that classic trio feel, right? Like what you get in the original trilogy where you have, of course, Luke meeting up with Han, and then Luke and Han meet up with Leia, and then they all go on this journey with Obi-Wan and Chewbacca and the droids. It's perfect, and it's laid out perfectly. And the way that they haven't done that in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi was a complete missed opportunity. So I think for J.J. Abrams to say that Rian Johnson is a great director especially with The Last Jedi, I think really just doesn't match up with my own opinion on things. Honestly, I think he's a horrible director, at least for Star Wars. I have not seen his movie called Knives Out. It may be a good movie. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I can't speak for that for myself. I don't plan on seeing it. But The Last Jedi, I feel that Rian Johnson is just not meant for Star Wars. And it's one of the main reasons as to why I believe his new trilogy is not going to happen. It's not going to move forward. And that's just that. So all the different decisions, right? It makes you wonder, what did Rian Johnson really do that contributes to Episode 9, other than the fact that he did not explore the characters getting together, allowing J.J. Abrams to bring the characters together? Is that really the only thing that Rian Johnson contributed to Episode 9 in this interview by J.J.? Because it seems like what J.J.'s saying is that a lot of important elements in The Last Jedi that Rian Johnson made, and decisions that he made in The Last Jedi, are actually what made things possible in Episode 9. Is he essentially saying that it was good that Rian Johnson killed off Snoke so early on in the sequel trilogy, the middle film of the Skywalker saga, or should I say in the sequel trilogy that ends it all? Honestly, I think that what JJ is saying here, it seems like that, you know, he really can't say what's on his mind, obviously, in these interviews. We've heard for a very long time that J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson have butt heads before about certain decisions, about certain movies, and you could see, we've gone over the spoilers and the leaks, which I won't go into in this video, but you can actually tell about something to do with Snoke that will be acknowledged in The Rise of Skywalker that is a complete piece of patchwork by J.J. Abrams. There's no denying that. It seems like a quick, easy fix. I'm not going to go into details because this is not a spoiler-centric video, but the very beginning of this movie has some form of acknowledgement of Snoke, and it is patchwork for Snoke's backstory that is told in 1, 2, 3. That fast. So you can see that J.J. Abrams had to fix elements of Rian Johnson's mess. And in this interview, essentially, it seems like he's really overpraising Rian Johnson, at least in my eyes. I've actually gone over my true feelings of how I feel about The Last Jedi. I hated the film. It left me feeling very depressed out of the theater. I know it's just a movie, but Star Wars is not just a movie. There's something more to it than that. There's some kind of energy that comes out of these films that feels like it's more than a movie. It's almost like a way of life when you watch these things, because it teaches you lessons as a child. It teaches you all these different life lessons as well. And I don't know, there's something great about the story, you know, of the originals and the prequels even, that the sequels seem to not really get or not deliver to the new fans and to the older fans, and it just seems a little out of place. And with The Rise of Skywalker on the horizon, it really is going to be very interesting to see exactly how it compares, you know, to The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens and everything related to it in that sense, right? So that's what J.J. Abrams had to say about Rian Johnson and how he essentially contributed to The Rise of Skywalker and allowing him to do things that he would have never been able to do without Rian Johnson, which, from what it seems in this interview, was the only thing is that Rian did not explore the three characters getting together, allowing J.J. Abrams to bring those characters together in this movie. Other than that, really nothing else. Honestly, I mean, we know how The Last Jedi panned out. You know, you have Luke's death, you have Snoke's death, you have, of course, everything related to the Force bomb between Rey and Kylo, but J.J. Abrams is the one who started that from the very start. He basically laid the breadcrumbs there in The Force Awakens, allowing Rian Johnson to evolve that. So even that, the Force bomb was not Rian's idea, really. That was all started with, you know, everything related to J.J. Abrams and Rey and Kylo and the interrogation scene and stuff around that line. So with that being said, guys, I would really like to hear your comments below, what you think about this interview by JJ. Do you really believe that Rian Johnson contributed a lot to The Rise of Skywalker that JJ wouldn't have been able to do if it weren't for Rian? Drop a comment below, let me know what you think about that. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.